All right. Well, we go. Well, whoa.
Whoa.
Hello.
So I want to know something, V, before we get started today.
Yes, ma'am.
What are you drinking?
Miller Lite.
And so I don't understand the drinking. It's 10:50 a.m. Is that what mortgage does to you?
So, first of all, this is called Liquid Death, and it appears to be a beer, but it is actually water
In a can?
in a can from the Alps.
Uh-huh.
So it does a couple things. One, you don't have the water bottle toxins.
No, you have the aluminum toxin.
There's a liner. And
How do you know? Did you cut a can open?
I can tell you that this is the freshest, lightest water I've ever had before.
So did you cut the can open to ensure that it's lined?
No, but I just assume when you spend as much money as I do on a can of water that it's
Why the name?
properly packed. It's Murder Your Thirst.
Wow.
That's like their thing.
Kind of dark.
Liquid Death, Murder Your Thirst.
Did you notice the picture on it? Also dark.
It works though.
Very dark.
I gave a can to one of my sister's kids, and she's like really strict. And I videotaped her when she walked up, and she was about ready to rip this kid's head off. And he's like, "It's just water. It's just water." It was awesome.
Something Vito would enjoy doing.
We're in week 10. Week 10, podcast number. Podcast number 10.
Is that like the coast of Southwest Florida coast?
So today we're talking about preparing for closing and the day of.
Right.
And
so
a little bit after.
a whole year after, I think we're going to go into. Like just some of the things a person should expect to have to do the first year and just some information that can help them keep everything all together.
I just feel like a lot of first-time home buyers, they don't know what to expect the day of. Right. So this video is to relieve their fears
of what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's super cool.
So I want to start with the money because that's something that has to be done the days before. Right.
So let's start with, and I know for us, if a person's using gift funds, we want to go ahead and have that giftor, which would be the person giving the gift, wire the funds to the closing table or to the title company in advance of the closing, right?
Right. So if you're receiving a gift for the transaction, let's say mom's gifting you 20 grand. Most lenders are going to require that gift to go to title as much as 3 days in advance because they have to verify the gift came, from mom, from the account mom said it was coming from the bank account mom was saying, and the amount mom said she was sending, right? So gift wire would kind of be the first thing on my radar.
Gotcha.
Right.
And so then for me, I'm thinking as we're coming up to closing, we're starting to get those final documents, that final closing disclosure and what all those fees are that you're going to be paying and closing costs and down payment. So in the beginning of the transaction, you've received what we call a preliminary CD. An estimate. And it started to refine itself as we've moved through the process. So at least 3 days before closing, 2 days before closing, we should be seeing that final CD. And all those numbers have been balanced with title. They've been balanced with all of the contract regulation or contract requirements. So at that point in time, I would expect that I'm sitting down with my client and we're going over it line by line. We're looking for any errors or anything that needs to be changed or updated, correct?
Right. And by sitting down, it doesn't physically mean they've got to come into the office. That this could be done over a Zoom meeting type or even a phone call. You just go over line by line. So with all of my customers, I go through every line of a closing disclosure so they know, hey, this is the first year of your tax bill, or this is the first year of your insurance bill, or this is your flood. We just go through every line. That way there's no surprises the day of closing.
Yep. And that once we've okayed that and everything looks good, then the next step would be that they have to get with the realtor partner and do their final walkthrough of the property. And that usually happens about 24 hours before closing, sometimes the same day. And what you're doing is you're going into the property and you're making sure that it looks the way it looked when you first put the offer in, and that nothing's gone or changed or damaged, right?
Well, more importantly, it might have been 30 days since you've walked into the property. You know, you walked through it when you decided to buy it. You maybe had a home inspection, and 30 days have passed. So you're just confirming the property is in the condition you expect it to be in.
Correct. So that's something else that's happening. And so then
so that's like the day before or the morning of.
The morning of, right? Yeah. And then we're getting ready to go to the title company. So I know a lot of times there's some confusion in who do I send my money to, A, and where do we close? Do we close at your office? Do we close at the realtor's office?
You send your money to me.
So I'm going to send all of my funds to Vito Amira.
No, so you're making a very important. So the money in the real estate transaction in the state of Florida, it's rather going to the title company or an attorney if the attorneys are involved, right? So that's extremely important. And typically, when is that being done?
That's typically being done the day of or the day before closing.
I'd say earliest the day before closing. Yeah. Wires are pretty quick.
But on occasions, it's okay to do it the morning of, as long as they expect that wire to hit the same day. So meaning you have to check with your bank and find out what their wire regulations are. What are their requirements? Do you have to be there in person? Because sometimes that does trip people up.
This is extremely important. So let me tell you about a customer in the past, right? They're buying a house down here in Southwest Florida, and they've flown down here to close. And it's the day before, and they're getting ready to send their wire, or hey, you have to send your wire. And they're like, okay, I'll call my bank. And their bank is like ABC Bank of Ohio or whatever, which does not have a branch in Southwest Florida. Well, their bank requires them to physically be present to send a wire.
Yep.
So moral of the story is, early in the transaction, you should reach out to your bank and find out what the procedures are.
Correct.
To send a wire. That way you can comply with those procedures. Yep. Maybe even set an appointment for the day before closing.
Because every banking institution has different rules. A lot of the mainstream banks will allow you to do it online or over the phone. But if you're dealing with a local credit union or
brick and mortar,
some of them still require that you go in person, which brings me to my next point as we're talking about wiring. So you're going to close at the title company's office. He's drinking more liquid death. Be afraid.
We're talking about money and wiring. But anyway,
with his pinky up, which is also terrifying. But so when we're talking about where do we go to close, most of the time the closings take place at the title company. Mm-hmm. Now, there are provisions, though. Like if you're out of town or maybe you're on a work trip, we can schedule what's called a mail away. And what we do is we mail you the documents, or we send a mobile notary to you, and they sign and they send everything back to the title company. So there's options when it comes to closing, but 90% of the time they're happening at a title company, and you sit down at a desk just like this one and you sign with a notary. Yep. But if there's extenuating circumstances, we can make provisions for that.
I think as long as we know in advance, we could tackle a lot of problems. And husband's working in California, wife is in South Dakota, and a non-occupying co-signer is in South Florida. We could pull that off.
Yeah, but we
as
just
long
need
as
to know.
We have notice.
Yeah.
Right.
And to make sure that we're following the steps and the timeframes, because when we're doing a closing like that, you have to have everybody's signature to be able to fund, right? So you have
dated on the date that they're signing the documents. Correct. And there's some overnighting going on. Yeah. It's a little bit of orchestra.
An orchestra. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So that's one thing to consider, is that we're going to the title company. We're wiring our money to the title company or to the attorney.
So how do I send a wire? Like, do I just get instructions in my email, or?
Which brings me to the next topic. And so you're so good at leading in. This is like a great thing where we do this well. So one of the things to consider with wiring is you are going to get wiring instructions from the title company.
I don't hear that I do things well very often. So I just want to,
can you cut that out and make it a short for us, Cody? Because Vito wants a pat on the back, and he does things well.
Yeah, I don't hear that very often, but thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So how do I know where to send my wire?
So you're going to get instructions from title.
Okay.
But one of the things I want to bring up and just stop and really sit on for a second and talk about is
Madagascar.
Wire fraud,
Yep.
right? So it is prevalent. It's everywhere right now. And hackers are breaking into realtors' emails and title company emails and starting to put together like spoof email addresses. Why are you looking at me like that?
Pink Panthers playing in the background.
Well, that's because I have a meeting. And so something people don't know about me. So we're going to go off topic for a second, Cody, and we're going to talk about the fact that Microsoft Office has let me down in their meeting reminders. And unfortunately,
if there's one thing I could change about Deanna, it would be her meeting reminder music.
Well, see, it's so obnoxious.
Oh my God. Here's what I'm going to do.
Miss anything.
So then we show up for a meeting and she's like, hey guys, I got to go on mute until this music stops playing. And then it's like, I got to fill this dead airspace with some stupid conversation until
but I never miss a
playing.
meeting because I know that the Pink Panther is
you missed 15 minutes of a meeting while the damn reminder's playing.
It's 60 seconds.
Oh my God. Do you know how long 60 seconds is?
Yeah, I've been sitting at the table with you longer than 60 seconds and it's starting to really work on my nerves.
So tell me, how do you send a wire? What's the process and what do I need to worry about?
So the first thing I'm worried about is wire fraud. And unfortunately, we live in a society where not so gracious people are committing wire fraud. And what they're doing as a hustle is they're breaking into realtor, borrower
email,
yep. And they're watching a transaction take place. And then they're making a spoof email address that will look very eerily similar to somebody that's already involved in the transaction, be it the realtor, the title company, or sometimes even the loan officer. So like, for instance, my email address is deanna@communitylendingfl.com.
It might be FLL.com.
It might be FLL.com. So it'll be so subtle that you don't even pick it up. Yep. So one of the things we coach our clients to is to make sure that once they receive those wiring instructions, that they pick up the phone, they call the title company with a verified phone number, and they verify those instructions before they wire. Because unfortunately, once you wire to a fraudulent account, you're done.
Gone.
And there are case after case after case of this happening across the United States where people are wiring their down payment or their closing costs and down payment funds, and they literally lose sometimes
Madagascar.
Yeah, it goes to Madagascar and it doesn't come back.
So more importantly, I think through education of our borrowers, we haven't had that happen here at Community Lending.
No, we've had one attempt though.
Yeah, it's extremely important that when you receive these wiring instructions, you call the title company directly. You don't call the number on the wiring instructions because guess what?
It's the wrong number.
It's probably going to be the wrong number. You can get the number from the contract. You can
call your loan officer.
You can call your loan originator and ask for the number because the loan originator should not verify the wire instructions. You can go to the Google.
The Google?
It's the Google is from my friend Jennifer Parks.
Jennifer Parks.
The Facebook and the Google.
Facebook and one of the best title companies I know, Jennifer Parks.
Entitled. She's definitely entitled.
Yeah.
Titled.
So the way to avoid wire fraud is to make sure that you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's. You're double checking and triple checking the information that comes over on the wire instructions before you send the wire. Talk to your loan officer and make sure it's the right phone number, that you get the person's name you're talking to. It matches up with what you've been seeing. I can't drive that point home enough because I have read article after article of people who have lost thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands
of dollars. So please be careful when you're doing your wires.
All right, so let's get to the fun part. So first, we've sent our gift wire if we've had it way in advance. We've sent our wire for our funds to close.
Yep.
And by the way, most title companies are not going to take cash. Like, what if they're not taking cash, right?
No, you're not bringing in a suitcase full of cash.
Okay.
No.
99% of the transactions in Lee County are done via wire. Not even Lee County, Florida.
Yeah. And I think nationwide, because one of the biggest concerns, again, it goes back to fraud.
Yeah.
Cashier's checks, bad checks. Yeah. So they do most Most title companies over a certain dollar amount will require an actual wire.
And that dollar amount is really tiny. It's not
Yeah,
like it's like $500 or
Yeah.
something. Okay. So I've sent my wire. I've done my final walkthrough. And it's the day of closing. So now this is the exciting part, right? So where you said I'm going to the title company.
Yep.
All right. And then I'm going to sign like 1 or 2 pages.
Oh, no. So what I want you to do before you go to the title company is start doing some wrist exercises.
Okay.
And, kind of loosen up the wrist.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a pen that has a lot of ink, because you're going to sign a package that's probably, 4,500 pages long. Well, that was a big gap, but it's quite a few pages.
I'm thinking somewhere like 120.
I don't know.
So a lot of these pages are like just kind of government compliance type. Hey, you have a right to receive a copy of your appraisal, Equal Credit Reporting Act.
So if I stop you there, a lot of the documents that you sign at closing,
You've already
signed in your initial loan package, but now we're getting original signatures. The most important thing you're signing is your mortgage and your note, right? And you want to make sure that that's obviously done and you're reviewing it. So you go to title and they put the note in front of you, and the note's going to outline your repayment terms. I tell my clients, make sure you look at it and you understand what the interest rate is. It matches what we've spoke about, because unfortunately, people are human and mistakes do happen. And I've had a closing or 2 over my career where...
Long career.
So we're not going to start down that road.
I'm just
today.
saying you've only had a closing or 2 over a long career. It's not like over the last week.
No, a long career.
Yes.
Very long.
Yeah.
About as long as I've been friends with you. And that's really, really, really long time.
Painfully long.
Painfully long.
Yeah.
So, but a time or 2 I've had where a closer at a mortgage company or a title company has made a mistake, and the document might reflect something wrong. So you do want to look at those documents and make sure that they match up to what we've discussed and what you've seen throughout your process before you sign. You also want to bring a copy of your driver's license with you. And really super important point.
Non-expired driver's license.
Non-expired driver's license. But also, if you're closing on a primary residence in the state of Florida and the loan is going in, say, Vito's name.
Ooh,
who does he have to bring with him?
I have to bring the Dream Crusher.
Who's the Dream Crusher?
That's my wife.
I see. Now, that bothers me just a little, because shout out to Nicole. She's an amazing individual who happens to keep you in line.
And crush my dreams.
She doesn't crush
For all
dreams.
of you husbands out there, you completely understand what I'm saying when you...
For all you wives out there.
You've got all this, you've got these great ideas, and then they're just smothered. They're just put to bed.
I think she keeps you safe.
Probably, but if my phone rings and it's her, it's going to say, the Dream Crusher is calling.
You hold a grudge for an extraordinarily long time.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I recently renamed somebody in my phone yesterday.
Who?
Bucket Boy.
Who's Bucket Boy?
There's a whole story. Maybe we'll talk about it on a different podcast, but
Bucket Boy. What was I for a while?
Oh, you've been everything. But I can tell you when I'm really mad at you, you're just Deanna. It literally says just Deanna, because that's like, you don't even deserve a nickname because you're so mean.
I'm mean, and Nicole's a dream crusher. But together, we keep you alive.
Bucket Boy.
Bucket Boy. So now we've signed our documents, we've bought our driver's license, but we're buying a primary residence in the state of Florida.
So your spouse needs to be there, because you're even like, so even if she's, let's say you just are putting the title in your name, right? But you're married, you're putting a mortgage against a joint marital asset.
So I like to understand the whys behind something. And so in my head, I'm trying to work through, why do I need to bring my spouse if I'm not buying? Because
it's her residence too. You're married.
And so the purpose of the law in the state of Florida is to keep somebody from leveraging the house and taking out a mortgage and leaving an estranged spouse holding a mortgage on the place that they live, right?
This is true. Or even, yes, this is true. So let's say you decide you don't like me anymore. You can't just go.
I decided that a couple weeks ago.
You can't just go do a cash out mortgage loan, pull all the equity out of the home, and then run to Barbados with Juan Carlos.
Oh, so Okay.
The pool guy.
The pool guy. So
Yeah. You need my signature to acknowledge that you're putting a mortgage against a joint marital asset. Even if I'm not on title, as a married woman, you need my signature. As a married man, I need your signature. They're not financially obligating themselves to the loan unless they are on the mortgage loan.
correct.
They are acknowledging that you're putting a mortgage against a joint marital asset.
And to be clear, that does not mean they have to go on title. So all that you need is your spouse present to sign acknowledging
5
that there's a
documents.
mortgage,
Yep.
acknowledging that you're taking out a mortgage on what's going to be a primary residence. But that does not require them to go on title or have any sort of ownership. Correct?
No,
Yep.
but because of the laws in the state of Florida, it is as my wife would call it, a JMA, joint marital asset.
She knows all about those JMAs.
Oh yeah, but being married, to a judge and attorney, I've learned one thing: if you give somebody a gift, it's technically no longer a JMA. So if I give you my liquid death, it's no longer a joint marital asset.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's mine.
So now
Mine?
now instead of giving gifts, I just buy things for our family. Because then they're pulled into the joint marital. So when she leaves me on the roadside dead, I could still include all those things in.
So first of all, if you're ever on a roadside dead, it's not because Nicole has left you there on the
she's
roadside.
going to leave me there. Yeah.
No, she's not. She's going to be the person who keeps you from being on the roadside dead.
But when she leaves me, that's where I'll end up. We all know this.
Correct.
Everyone
Or
who
under
knows
a
me knows
bridge,
this.
homeless.
With a Ferrari that I can't afford to work, so it will probably be my couch.
Yep. Got it. So now that we've covered all the things you don't do when you're married.
Back to the closing
Back to
table.
the
It's
closing
exciting. You're
table.
buying a home today.
So we're at the title company. We've signed all of our documents. And so the expectation at that point is, wow, I get my keys. Does that always happen that way?
So a couple things. One, I would talk to my lender in advance so I would understand what the expectations are after I sign all my documents. Because some lenders require what's called a funding authorization.
We don't.
Which we don't. So what's a funding authorization? You sign all the documents. They gather them together. They scan them in. They send them to the lender. The lender puts you in a queue. They take time to review them. They make sure all your signatures are correct. And this can take minutes or hours. So you sit at title, twiddling your thumbs, and it looks something like this. Okay, but we don't do that. So
Can you do that again?
Yeah.
I just hold it. There it is. So you're sitting at title. You've signed all your documents. You're super excited about getting your home.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's just this awkward delay and you don't really know what's going on and you think what's going on. And what's happening in the background is the title agent has packaged up the funding documents. They faxed them or scanned them back or uploaded them into a portal.
You said fax.
I said fax. I just dated myself. But long story short, they're getting back to that closer, and that closer at the mortgage company could have 5 loans in front of it
10.
that they're reviewing, 10. And so it might take an hour. It might take 2 hours.
So the thing is get with your lender so you understand what the process is. Do they have to wait for funding authorization? How long does that typically take? With community lending, we auto fund.
Yep.
So as long as the wires have been received, and that's talking about mainly the borrower's wire, because as the lender's wire, ours have not, it's been there every single time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a wire problem on our end. As long as your wire has been received, the title company is going to hand you your keys.
So talking about wire cutoff times and going back to step 1, when they go to or step 2, when they go to the bank to initiate the wire, they make that phone call. It's important to understand what their institution requires in terms of cutoff times.
They might only send them at noon on Thursdays. You've got
Right.
to get the procedures.
So
down.
you're getting that procedure up front. You understand what you're walking into. And so in a perfect world, that wire is at title. Our wire is at title. What's something else that could cause a delay at the closing table and prevent someone from getting their keys the same day?
Seller's not available?
Yeah, I just had one like that recently where our sellers were actually it was a very good friend of mine, and they were in Austria. And they thought they signed the documents right, sent them to the title company. Title company never reviewed them,
Ugh.
which was a whole nother snafu. And by the time closing day arrives, they open up the FedEx package, which should have been opened a couple of days before, and notice that the seller never really signed in the right space. So they had to go back, and it was an overseas transaction. So it caused a delay. And what happened to my buyer in that moment was, unfortunately, the deal isn't consummated.
Because there was a glitch
Right.
of which the buyers or the buyer's agent couldn't control. It was a glitch on the title company end.
Correct.
But one thing I'd like to say, because I've seen this happen before, it's like the buyers show up at the title company with a 48-foot U-Haul,
Their grandmother, a dog, and their
7
kids.
movers who
Yep.
are on the payroll at an hourly rate, and then they get to title and their wire was not received. So, like for me, when I'm talking to my buyers, it's like schedule the move the next day.
Yeah.
Like let's prepare for. I don't want to prepare for
The
the worst case,
unexpected,
but
the unexpected, because unfortunately, people are human, things happen.
Yeah.
So you want to prepare that if something does cause a small delay, that you don't have the contractor showing up at the house that you don't have keys to. So that's something to definitely keep.
All
in
right,
mind.
so let's pretend everything goes perfect, because typically that's exactly how community lending closing goes, right?
Yep.
So I've signed my documents. I have taken the social media photos with my realtor so she or he can advertise on Facebook that they closed a transaction because they're excited, right? Hey, I helped Sally get a home. It's uncomfortable. They got a picture of a house and keys or whatever. All right, so you've taken your pictures so you can share with your family.
Yep. And now you're going to your new house. You're getting the keys and you're off to the races.
So, we never talked about so do I show up? Who pays the electricity bill and the water bill? Do I do that before closing or?
I would be setting those things up prior to closing to be turned on the day of closing.
Yeah.
Now, I know some public utilities will
Water.
require that you have
Evidence.
evidence of that you own the home.
Whoa, so what they require is evidence that you've consummated the deal.
Yeah. What does consummated mean?
So in this situation, when I'm talking about consummating the deal, they want a copy of the closing disclosure that's signed.
Yeah. So sometimes some of those
Don't
utilities.
send me any evidence of consummating deals other than documents.
There you go. So in this case with public utilities, you're going to have to wait till after closing to get those set up, but they're generally quick,
Yep.
right? So
What
now
about cable? Sometimes cable's they're 3 weeks out, right? So kind of maybe if cable and internet's important, let's say you run a home business or something, or you work from home, maybe in advance, call the cable company and say, hey, I'm closing on January 1st. Can you install my cable on the 2nd?
call it in like August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've received our keys, right?
Yeah.
What are some things we should know about after the closing?
One of the things we want to think about is filing for our homestead exemption if it's a primary residence, and that, or porting our existing homestead, and that's going to save you money.
So 2 things. Filing a homestead exemption will reduce your tax liability on your property. So it's very important to do that.
And it locks it in so that you can't get an increase more than 3% per year.
Right.
Thereafter.
So if your value doubles, your taxes do not double. This is extremely important.
Very important.
Secondary, if you'd already owned a home in Lee County and you're going to port. No. You're going to move your homestead exemption from one home to another so that if you had some portability, it may reduce your tax liability on your home. So we're filing for homestead exemption, leetc.com, leetaxcollector.com.
Correct. And if you have a wonderful loan officer like myself, I'm going to send you the link.
So in your notes that you've prepared so nicely for this meeting
Now
today.
let's talk about preparing notes.
No, it's not. In your
Why?
notes,
Because
you've
the
mentioned
slacker.
you've mentioned yearly insurance.
Well, right. So you want to check on your.
This is after closing.
This is after closing, but when your insurance comes up for renewal, a lot of folks just move forward with their existing insurance policy and take any changes that might occur. So specifically recently, there's been huge increases in insurance, right? And that's going to affect your monthly payment. So
Sooner or later,
right? So you want to take the opportunity to shop your insurance, at least every year, 2 years, and make sure you're still getting a decent deal.
So to be clear, with most mortgages, we're paying the first year up front in the closing. So when you bring your funds to closing via wire, that you verified your wire instructions, in that money is the first year of insurance on 99.9% of our transactions, right?
Right.
So, kind of set a calendar reminder at month 11 to maybe call your insurance agent and just educate yourself on what's going on in the marketplace.
Correct.
Do you need to shop? Do you need to go someplace else?
And there's ways that your insurance agent can help you save money. Sometimes your home has gotten a little older and maybe you need a 4-point inspection, or maybe they're looking at a wind mitigation. There's a lot of different avenues.
So maybe on the 11th month, make sure you're calling your insurance agent and shopping, making sure you have the best coverage for your family. You might have upgraded the whole home or got a new roof, and now you get some discount.
Or if you put in new windows, get hurricane shutters, all of that would give you additional discounts. So you want to make sure you're reviewing that like you would review your car insurance and not just settle for the renewal policy at the rate that you're
hundreds and hundreds of dollars at stake.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even monthly.
Yeah.
All right.
And so then the other thing I hear this a lot, and I try to educate people as they come to me to get mortgages about, you've ever had a family member or a friend say to you, that mortgage company I dealt with just really screwed me because at the end, my mortgage payment went up. They told me my mortgage was going to be $1,200 a month, and now it's
fixed. I have a fixed rate.
It's a fixed rate, and now it's $1,700.
So what are 2 things that are going to change for the rest of your life?
Your taxes and your insurance.
Yeah, your taxes are always going to go up. And in today's world, insurance I haven't seen it get cheaper in a while, right? So yes, 99% of the people that get a mortgage from community lending have a fixed rate product.
Yep.
And so
that principal and interest, your actual mortgage payment,
will never change.
It'll always, if it's $1,600.33 a month, it'll always be $1,633.
But will change is your taxes may go up or your insurance may go up. And once a year, they reassess it and they make a decision. Hey, is there enough money to pay the tax bill, or do we need to set aside a little more? Or is there too much? And do we need to cut a check back?
Yeah. So always be prepared that if your taxes go up.
Do you know who gets the check, like when we get a check in the mail?
Your wife.
I don't even. Sometimes she doesn't tell me about it.
Yeah, well.
It's just like.
You know what happens to it if she tells you about it, right?
Where's that pen?
Hold on. What are you going to do?
This is the check, and she puts a piece of paper over it. And she's like, sign here. What am I signing, hon? Just sign. That's how it goes down in my household.
I don't believe that.
I know, I'm just kidding, but I don't get any of the money.
You know what I love?
She doesn't trust me with the money.
You know what I love about your wife?
Dream Crusher. Can you just call her by her name?
I think she is probably one of the most fair people I've ever met.
She's very fair.
She's very fair. She is
Except when it comes to my dreams.
Ooh, Nicole, I'm so sorry. I tried to control him, and unfortunately, it didn't go the way I planned.
Yep.
I know he's my responsibility from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but I'm slacking.
Bucket Boy sent me off.
Bucket Boy.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the end, we've gone through what to expect the day of closing, what to expect at closing when you get your keys, and what to do right after you close, right?
Even up to the first year.
And I think one of the things that I wanted to also point out is shortly after closing, say 4 to 6 weeks after closing, you're going to receive some documents in the mail from title, and it's going to be your original owner's title policy. So after you go closing, you're going to get a big stack of documents from the title company.
Yep.
You're going to get a copy of your survey, a copy of your appraisal, and a few weeks later in the mail, you'll also get a copy of your owner's title policy. You want to put all of those documents
along. That's a big word. Can you tell me what an owner's title policy is?
An owner's title policy is a policy issued to ensure that the property you have just purchased has no liens or encumbrances against it, and it was able to be sold. So if for some reason after you close, say a roofer comes by the door, knocks on the door and say, hey, you owe me $10,000 for a roof I put on 5 years ago, The owner's title policy, because it was issued with no liens, then has to step up and take care of that.
It's insurance that you have a clear and marketable title.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. So you want to put all these documents, including your insurance deck pages, your survey,
Somewhere safe.
Somewhere safe. Now, Vito and I argue about this all the time, but in modern technology, the cool thing is that you could literally scan all this stuff in and save a house folder so that when you're looking for things, they're right there instead of in some filing cabinet drawer or box where you're digging around.
She's talking about the Dropbox.
The Dropbox or the Google.
The Google.
The Google's good.
Yeah.
And another shout out to Jen
You know what I
Parks
use?
for
I use the closet.
the closet. I think you use the wife, and the wife takes care of all the paperwork.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having all these things handy, so because if you go to to refinance your mortgage,
It can save you money.
it can save you money. So you want to keep your hands on that, and your survey you can use again.
Yep. Let's say you're going to put a pool in.
Or a fence up. Now, once you change the exterior of the property, that survey's no longer valid.
Right.
But that first time, you can use it, and that'll save you about, what, $450?
Today's market.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little more. And time.
So you want to make sure you keep all those documents handy, keep them in a nice, neat order, and every year you want to put your new deck page for your insurance in
Deck
that pile.
page?
Declarations page, yes.
All these weird words you use.
You use the same
You scare
words.
me.
I don't scare you.
Deck. I feel like you're going to throw something at me. We're
would
going to play
like to
cards.
I would like to deck you. That's true.
I'm married.
I said deck.
I'm just saying, it seems weird. I'm very happily married to the Dream Crusher.
I love the dream.
All right,
Crusher.
so
more so than I love you.
lastly,
by the way.
I want to talk about something that's going to happen on every transaction in the state of Florida, right? So once you close on a home, they record your mortgage at the county, and it's public information. So people that want to advertise you can use this information in order to send you mailers. So they have your address. They know you've taken out a mortgage. They know the company you've taken out a mortgage with. They know the balance.
Interest rate.
Well, sometimes they know the interest rate if it's adjustable. Sometimes they don't. But they'll send you a flyer or a piece of mail that appears to look like it came from us.
Yep.
Unless you read the small print where it says, we have no affiliation with your lender, but they're trying to sell you life insurance or mortgage protection insurance if you die. The one thing I tell my borrowers, if someone's trying to deceive you to get your attention, don't do business with them.
Yeah.
Call your insurance agent. Call someone you know and trust. If they're
agree.
using deceptive practices to get you to call them, nah.
Yeah. Same thing goes with the refinance offers. A lot of times, and we had an instance like this a few years ago where a VA borrower that we had closed, we got an early payoff, which is something that we're alerted to. The borrower refied, and LO reached out to see why. And unfortunately, this veteran had gotten this piece of mail saying, "Hey, we can lower your rate." And
Through a government-sponsored program.
yeah, and what ended
Smoke
up
and
happening
mirrors.
for the poor guy is he went from a 30-year fixed rate
To a 7-year adjustable.
to an adjustable
with a bunch of fees.
with a bunch of fees, and it was not to his benefit at all. And he got taken advantage of. So you want to make sure that you're reading.
They're predators.
They really are predators. So you want to make sure that you're reading it and making sure that it is actually from us if you receive mail from us. And like Vito said, there's the fine print.
Always fine print.
Always fine print. And if you have a question after you've reviewed it and you're still not sure, reach out to your local loan officer and ask if they can check on it for you, and they'll be able to clear up any confusion.
Awesome.
Yeah, this has been great. Well, it's been a pleasure no, not really. I've got to backtrack. It really wasn't a pleasure to be here.
I was going to say it's nice sitting down with you, but you're standing up. I'm sitting down.